This is the Behind the Line podcast, coming to you from the wacky left coast capital of Seattle. News from the Pacific Northwest, the left coast, the U.S., and the world that matters. The stories the MSM won't talk about. Deciphering the truth through all the lies. For more, visit BehindTheLinePodcast.com.
Well, the legislature is hard at work spending your tax dollars to find ways to ruin your life. So I went through some of the bills last night that are being heard this morning and some that stuck out. So I just thought I'd share those with you so you could know what your legislators are up to there in Olympia. All right, well, here we go. Just a few. HB 2425, a new 0.5% sales tax on new construction to fund a rental support program for low-income families. You know, because we're all about doing everything we can for those that have less than those that have more. So if for some reason, some way in this day and age, you can scrape together enough money to buy a house, you're going to get tapped for another 0.5% to pay for some low-income families' rent. HB 2323 requires landlords to report on-time rental payments to a national consumer reporting agency if the tenant requests they do so. They would not be required to report late payments, and the reporting can stop if rent is paid late. This is just another loophole for landlords to have to jump through. More hassle, more and more rights to renters. They're also trying to pass another cap on how much rent can be raised. I understand that rent's high, but you also have to understand that most of these landlords, mom and pop, they're using the rent to make their mortgage payment and maybe also survive. And I'm sorry, but if you saved enough money to buy 2 houses and you want to rent one, then guess what? You can charge what you want for rent if somebody's willing to pay it. HB 2308 authorizes city governing authorities to establish a property tax exemption program for properties which are converted into buildings that contain affordable housing units for low-income households. This would last 8 years, but can be extended to 12 if the owner commits to renting at least 20% of the units to low and moderate income. Again, more benefits and bribes to build more low-income housing and bring your property value down and cram your neighborhoods full of as many people as possible. We don't need more low-income housing. HB 2321. Modifying middle housing requirements and the definitions of a transit stop. Middle housing. No later than 6 months after its next required comprehensive plan update, fully planning cities meeting population requirements must allow for the development of a minimum number of units on all residential lots as follows. Cities with a population of at least 75,000 must at least 4 units on all residential lots, at least 6 units on all residential lots within a quarter-mile walking distance of a major transit stop, and at least 6 units if 2 are affordable housing. Cities with a population of at least 25,000 but less than 75,000 must allow at least 2 units on all residential lots, at least 4 units on all residential lots within a quarter-mile walking distance of a major transit stop, and at least 4 units if 1 unit is affordable housing. Cities with a population less than 25,000 within a contiguous UGA with the largest city in a county with a population of more than 275,000 in the county must allow 2 units on all residential lots. Here again, this will allow multi-unit low-income dwellings to be built in historically single-family residential areas. They just want to cram as many people as possible into as little space as possible and get rid of single-family neighborhoods. Seattle even talked about not allowing single-family homes to be built anymore, and they may have passed that. I'm not sure. HB 2196 lowers the legal blood alcohol limit to 0.05, down from 0.08. This will be for DUI and physical control. Now, while I understand the reason for this effectively means if you go out and drink one drink, you're DUI. HJM 4003, this is not a bill, but this is something being discussed this morning, endorses the call for a fossil fuel nonproliferation treaty. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the United Nations body for assessing climate change science, states that humanity must achieve net zero in greenhouse gas emissions by the middle of the century in order to limit the effects of anthropogenic climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming. The 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference called for transitioning away from the use of fossil fuels in energy systems by 2050. Recent Washington environmental laws, the Washington Legislature has passed a number of bills in recent years related to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, including HJM 4003, Senate Bill 5145, prohibiting the use of hydraulic fracking and gas and oil exploration, House Bill 2311, requiring progress towards zero emissions by 2050, the Climate Commitment Act, creating a market mechanism to cap emissions, and Senate Bill 5141, reducing environmental health disparities. This bill, not a bill, the legislature formally endorses the call for a fossil fuel nonproliferation treaty. It affirms the need for a plan to phase out fossil fuel production in a manner that prioritizes impacted workers and local government services. The legislature urges the United States government to develop a fossil fuel nonproliferation treaty. This isn't a bill, just our state Democrats kissing the UN's ass. They won't be happy until we are completely dependent on electricity and have rolling blackouts and no reliable source of energy. Everyone living in their little concrete box in their 15-minute city with no car. SB 6271 requires the Liquor and Cannabis Board to collect data on cannabis product sales and submit a report to the Legislature by November 14th of 2025. Requires the LCB to formulate a recommended approach and implementation plan for modifying the cannabis excise tax and submit a report to the Legislature by September 18, 2026. Now, I don't use cannabis, but a lot of people do, and cannabis is currently taxed at 37% of the sale price of each retail product. They want to raise that tax based on the amount of THC that's in the product. This is already the highest tax state for cannabis in the country, and of course, it's not enough. SB 6205, this is the only bill that I read that I agree with. Pledge of Allegiance in schools. The board of directors of every school district must cause appropriate flag exercises to be held in each classroom at the beginning of the school day and at the opening of all school assemblies. Those students who wish to do so may recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Those students who choose not to recite the pledge must maintain a respectful silence. Beginning no later than the 2025-26 school year, school districts must offer instruction in the meaning and history of the Pledge of Allegiance. At a minimum, the instruction must be offered once in elementary school, once in middle school, and once in high school, to the extent practicable. OSPI must make curricular resources related to the meaning and history of the Pledge of Allegiance available in the library of openly licensed courseware. Finally, this is a bill that makes sense to me and is meaningful, but I'm guessing it's going to get shot down. We need to bring back some pride of country and historical education to our schools. That's it for today, guys. I'm sure there'll be some more good ones for tomorrow morning.
Thank you for listening to the Behind the Line podcast. If you like this broadcast, please like and share it. Please follow us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, Truth Social, Telegram, Gab, Parler, and LinkedIn. You can find our podcast at BehindTheLinePodcast.com, NetNewsNetwork.net, and on Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and anywhere podcasts can be found. Thank you for your support.